First of all, I want to acknowledge we're on Gadigal land. We all know it's Gadigal land, First Nations land. Let's pay our collective respects and let's remember the violence and the genocide against First Nations peoples that's happening here. The actions of the NT government and the failure of the federal Labor government to actually do anything in the budget, anything in Parliament to stand up for First Nations rights. This land always was and always will be Aboriginal land and Gadigal land. Thanks everyone for coming out at short notice tonight. This is another moment, isn't it, where we get to see in the plainest possible light what the federal Labor government stands for. And it doesn't stand for protecting Australians. It doesn't stand for international law. It doesn't stand for basic decency. It stands for the state of Israel and its ongoing violence against Australians, against Palestinians, against the people of Lebanon. And that's not our government, and it's not done in our name. So what has Israel done? Well, Israel has engaged in major breach of international law. Israel has reached out into the Cyprus search and rescue zone, well beyond Israel's international borders, into Cyprus's search and rescue zone, and it has kidnapped 11 Australians in breach of international law. It's taken them off their ships, diverted them from their aid mission, kidnapped 11 Australians, and it's now almost certainly keeping those 11 Australians in torture-like conditions on a specially constructed prison boat that they've made for this purpose. Now, what would any self-respecting Australian government do when a foreign nation, in breach of international law, kidnaps 11 Australians and holds them in torture-like conditions? I know what I would expect our government to do. To immediately protest, to call in the ambassador, to threaten the breaking of foreign relations, to definitely end key contracts with that government. Did the Albanese Labor government do any of that? No. Penny Wong, Prime Minister Albanese, DFAT spokespeoples, they came out and they criticised the 11 brave Australians for their actions.
Shame!
They actually said they urged Australians not to go and break the illegal blockade and provide humanitarian assistance to Gaza. That's what our government did. They are an absolute disgrace, and I am sick of pretending that Labor will change. This is Labor through and through. This is their project. Labor have decided that they won't stand up for Australians. They won't stand up for international law. They definitely won't stand up for the people of Gaza or Palestine. They are signed on to a project where whatever the US asks for, whatever Washington demands, that's what Albanese, Miles and Wong will deliver. They're not actually acting in Australia's interests. They don't care about the 11 Australians. They don't care about international law. They are delivering on Washington's project in the Middle East. And that's what this is about. And so we're here tonight to stand up for those basic principles, to say this government is not acting in our name. And we have some pretty basic demands. Call in the Israeli ambassador and threaten to break ties. Put in sanctions until every Australian is free. Call in the Israeli ambassador and say we will be ending every single weapons contract with the state of Israel, every single one of them. Call in the Israeli ambassador and say we will be sanctioning, clear sanctions on every member of the Netanyahu government who has been part of not only kidnapping Australians but breaching international law by preventing humanitarian aid getting to the people of Gaza. And finally have a government that acts in the Australia's interests, in the interests of peace. And we sometimes ask what we can do at moments like this. Well, we need to ask why this is happening. Why is Australia refusing to do the most basic things? And how do we make Australia, instead of being so pathetic and worse, complicit, how do we make Australia a part of a global movement for peace? A movement to actually get a free Palestine and peace with justice? Well, we've got to break our ties with the United States. We've got to end AUKUS. We've got to shut US bases. And we've got to finally have a government that's not hostage to Washington and its proxy in the Middle East of Israel. And this is urgent work. And I don't know about you, but I feel it's work we can win. And it's a campaign we can win. Because across this country, people have had the mask torn off their eyes. They're seeing the way the world works. They're seeing the way our government is not acting in the interests of Australians. And I want to give credit here to Ethan. Ethan, are you here somewhere? Ethan Floyd and all those brave Australians who have gone to try and break the blockade. And do you know what those 11 Australians are probably facing right now? They're probably facing humiliation and torture on an Israeli prison ship. Probably having seawater sprayed on them so they can't sleep. Food restricted. And they're probably on their way to a desert prison in Israel. And I don't know about you, but I'd like a government who calls bullshit on that. Who stands up and says, don't you dare kidnap Australians. Don't you dare prevent humanitarian aid flowing to the people of Gaza. And I want that government to happen sooner rather than later. And it starts by ending AUKUS. We take the path by kicking out Labor and we replace those buggers in Canberra. Thanks very much.
Yay!
All right, I want to send a message loud and clear.